The Superstition Mountains rise out of the Arizona desert like a wall, jagged, sunburned, and silent. They look empty from a distance, but people who go in there say the silence moves. For more than a century, men have entered these canyons chasing a story. The Lost Dutchman's gold mine, a treasure so rich it could change a life overnight. None of them thought the mountain would change them first. Prospectors vanish without a trace. Bodies are found in places no one could have reached. And those who survive talk about things that shouldn't exist. Lights in the rocks, whispers carried by the wind, and something watching from the ridges. Locals don't call it a legend anymore. They call it protection, as if the mountain itself guards what's buried inside. Lock your doors, put on your headphones, because after this video, you'll never see the Superstition Mountains the same way again. The Dutchman's claim, Jacob Waltz's final secret Superstition Mountains. Every story about the Superstition Mountains leads back to one man, Jacob Waltz, the immigrant who brought death and gold into the same breath. Waltz was born in Germany in the early 1800s and came to America chasing opportunity. By the time he reached Arizona, he was already a prospector, quiet, careful, obsessed with maps. Locals called him the Dutchman, a mistake born from his accent. He lived alone in a small adobe house on the outskirts of Phoenix and spent weeks at a time in the mountains. When he returned, he always carried something heavy wrapped in canvas. That weight, as it turned out, was gold, or so pure it shouldn't have existed naturally. Assayers tested it, 90% purity. No one could trace where it came from. Waltz never said a word. For decades, people tried to follow him into the desert. He gave nothing away. Only near the end, when fever overtook him in the spring of 1891, did he speak. As he lay dying, he whispered to his caretaker, Julia Thomas, about a vein of gold hidden deep inside the Superstition Mountains, near a red mesa and a sharp needle of rock that points to God. Julia and a few friends took down every word. Then Waltz died, and the curse began. When Julia finally entered the mountains, her group vanished for nearly a week. When they returned, they were sunburned, half delirious, and empty-handed. Julia said she'd seen tracks, boot prints that weren't theirs, following them in the sand. Every night, they heard stones shifting nearby, as if someone was walking just beyond their campfire. They thought it was another prospector. They were wrong. After Julia's failure, dozens of others went searching. Some disappeared within days. Others returned claiming they'd found the entrance to a shaft but couldn't go inside. The air, they said, wasn't right. One man described it as breathing through dust and static. When he tried to light a lantern, the flame pulled sideways as if drawn by wind underground. In 1916, a pair of prospectors named Adolf Ruth and Reini Petrasch used fragments of Waltz's notes to search a ridge near Weaver's Needle, a towering spire visible from miles away. They never made it back together. Ruth's body was found 6 months later, headless, his skull discovered half a mile from his camp. The only item intact was a weathered map, hand-marked with an X. In pencil beside it were 4 words, Veni, Vidi, Vici, no gold. Newspapers exploded with the story. The Phoenix Gazette called it the curse of the Dutchman's mine. Suddenly, the mountain wasn't just a place. It was an open wound in the desert, swallowing whoever got too close. Over the next century, the pattern never stopped. Searchers, hikers, even scientists trying to map the area electronically reported the same phenomenon. Interference, missing time, compasses spinning out. Satellite imaging often shows dark anomalies in the basalt walls, shapes that shouldn't exist, shifting slightly between surveys. Skeptics say Waltz invented the mine, that the gold he carried came from an old Mexican cache or stolen ore from the Peralta family, early Spanish miners who once claimed this same land. But none of those theories explain the details of what's been found since. Rusted tools buried under solid rock, an iron door frame protruding from a sealed canyon wall, a series of tunnels visible only after flash floods, and gone again the next season. Even stranger are the reports of what's been heard. Low rhythmic sounds deep in the ground, like hammer strikes echoing through metal. The same pattern, over and over, 3 beats, pause, 3 beats again. In 2018, a team of cavers entered a fissure near Peralta Canyon. Their footage was never released publicly, but one of them later described what happened inside. The walls, he said, weren't stone, so they were carved. When asked by whom, he answered, no one living. To this day, no one has proven the Lost Dutchman's mine exists, but that hasn't stopped people from trying. New expeditions leave every summer. Some come back empty-handed, some never return at all. And every time the desert claims another life, locals remember Waltz's final words, the ones Julia never wrote down, only repeated years later, quietly to a friend. You don't find the gold. The mountain finds you. But if the Dutchman's secret was only the beginning, what about the others who followed? The ones who went deeper and never walked back into the light? The disappeared prospectors, 600 lost souls in the Superstition Desert. By the early 20th century, the legend of the Lost Dutchman's mine had turned into something much darker. It wasn't just a story about gold anymore. It was about the people who went looking for it and never came back. No one knows exactly how many have vanished in the Superstition Mountains. Local authorities say a few dozen, old-timers say hundreds. Search and rescue records, newspaper archives, and park ranger logs tell a different story, one that adds up to more than 600 missing persons since the late 1800s. Some disappeared during heat waves, some during perfect weather, and some vanished without a single footprint leading away from their camps. One of the first recorded cases dates back to 1931, when two prospectors from Oklahoma, Dr. Adolph Ruth and Leroy Wright, entered the Superstitions with a map said to be copied from Jacob Waltz's original. Only Wright returned, and he refused to talk about what he saw. Ruth's skull was found 6 months later with a bullet hole through it and a map folded inside his shirt pocket. The sheriff called it suicide. Locals called it the beginning of something else. By the 1950s, the disappearances had become so common that newspapers began referring to the area as the Bermuda Triangle of the Desert. One by one, names were added to the list. James A. Cravey, 1961, found decapitated near Weaver's Needle. Glenn and Joe Stewart, 1976, vanished while mapping an old trail. Jesse Capon, 2009, a Denver hotel manager who spent years obsessed with the Dutchman's gold. His truck was found parked at First Water Trailhead, his tent still standing, his boots neatly placed inside. It took searchers 3 years to find what was left of him, wedged in a crevice so narrow no human could have crawled there alone. Officially, these are accidents: dehydration, disorientation, heat stroke. But there's something strange about how similar the scenes look. Supplies untouched, radios working, water bottles full, weapons unfired. No signs of panic, just absence. Rangers say it's the terrain. The Superstitions are a maze: sharp cliffs, hidden caves, and dry washes that look like trails until they collapse under your feet. But even the rangers admit the pattern doesn't make sense. Some victims were experienced outdoorsmen. They left detailed maps, GPS coordinates, even satellite phones. Yet once they crossed a certain ridgeline, communication always cut out. No signals, no echoes, just silence. In 1977, a helicopter search team reported something they couldn't explain. Flying low over a canyon east of Miner's Needle, they saw a circular pattern of stones, about 30 feet across, arranged perfectly in a spiral. At the center lay a rusted pickaxe and a boot. When they landed minutes later, the formation was gone. No stones, no tool, nothing but wind sweeping over sand. The Apache people, who have lived near these mountains for centuries, have their own explanation. They believe the land itself guards something sacred, and that those who enter without respect are taken back by the mountain. Elders describe hearing the same 3 rhythmic knocks deep underground that prospectors once mistook for hammering. They say it's not men mining, it's the earth closing its doors. Even modern investigators haven't escaped the curse. In 2010, a YouTube documentarian named Trevor Thorne set out to film the most dangerous trails around Weaver's Needle. He went missing on day 3. Searchers found his camera half buried in gravel near a dry wash. The footage lasted only 12 minutes. Wind static, and then a single frame of light flickering behind a ridge. The last sound was a voice whispering something low, almost beneath hearing. Forensic audio specialists later said it wasn't English, and it wasn't echo. It was recorded from inside the microphone itself. No one's ever solved what happens to these people. Theories range from dehydration to secret tunnels, to the supernatural, that the mountain is protecting something no one was meant to find. But the truth might be simpler and worse. Maybe everyone who goes in thinks they're chasing gold. Maybe what they're really chasing is the same thing that's been waiting there all along. Because once the desert takes you, it doesn't leave you behind. It keeps you. And if 600 people can vanish under the same sun, what happens when the mountain itself starts fighting back? The Apache curse and the thunder god of the peaks, permission not given. Outsiders call it a curse. The people who were here first don't use that word. For the Western Apache, the Superstition Mountains were, and are, a place of power. A boundary where you behave as if you're being watched because you are, not by a ghost, but by the land itself. Stories speak of a thunder being in the high country and of openings in the rock where the world below breathes into the world above. These aren't horror tales. They're instructions. Take only what is offered. Don't dig where you weren't invited and never sleep with your head toward the peaks. Prospectors heard those warnings and kept walking. The first miners to push deep into the canyons wrote about thunder that rolled on cloudless days and wind that came from inside fissures in the rock. Horses balked at certain bends in the trail, then bolted as if a whip cracked where no hand was. Petroglyphs, spirals, lightning, masked figures dot the basalt near dry washes. Treasure hunters photograph them like maps. To the descendants who carved them, they are not directions, they are reminders. This ground belongs to someone older than you. By the late 1800s, the Dutchman's name had fused with older Spanish-Mexican rumors of Peralta ore. Men carried Peralta stones, crosses etched in soft rock that supposedly marked a lode. Most were fakes. A few were old. All of them pulled people farther in. A Phoenix newspaperman wrote that the mountains answer trespass with thunder. It wasn't metaphor. Ranch hands on the south boundary swore they'd hear 3 clean knocks in the earth, then a dry crack in the sky, lightning without storm, and watch dust lift in rings as if something stood up from the ground. In the 1930s, a cattleman named Trevino tried to dynamite a sealed cleft above Peralta Canyon. The charge misfired twice. On the third attempt, the fuse burned down, sputtered, and went out. When he reached for it, the powder flashed cold blue, not heat, leaving his fingers numb for days. He gave up mining and started warning strangers off the trail. When asked what changed his mind, he said, "It told me no." He would not explain what it was. Curse is an outsider's shortcut for a longer belief, permission. Apache elders, when they address the subject at all, frame it simply. The mountain has its own order. Sound travels wrong to keep you from going where you shouldn't. Time stretches when you overstep. If you insist, the place removes you. The English word makes it dramatic, their word makes it practical. Modern teams brought sensors where prayers once stood. They logged infrasound in narrow arroyos. Sub-bass pressure that unsettles the body, triggers dread, and scrambles judgment. They measured magnetic anomalies around iron-rich dikes that spin compasses and fog radios. Park medics track heat delusions. Hikers who insist someone is calling their name from a shaded wall step toward it and don't see the loose scree underfoot. To a scientist, these are hazards. To the people who lived with them long enough to name them, they're the voice of the place. Then there are the lights, not campfires, not flashlights. Pale, lambent glows that skim ridgelines and pause at trail forks. Electronics spike when they appear. Batteries bleed down like air from a puncture. You can call it St. Elmo's fire or piezoelectric discharge from stressed quartz. You can also call it what an old man in Gold Canyon called it when he agreed to speak on the record once. And only once. Warning lights. We had them on the ranch. They kept us from wasting bullets at shadows. Even the thunder god has a physical face. Thunderheads build fast over the superstitions, hammered into existence by uplifted desert heat. They fire dry lightning along the high spires and vanish in minutes, leaving no rain, only ozone and static crawling your forearms. Prospectors learned that smell. Metallic, antiseptic, a high country no. More than one search report mentions victims found with intact water, unspent ammo, maps folded to fresh pages. Everything tidy like they were about to start again. Then a shortfall, a bad angle, and a body where a warning said stop. Respect is not romance here, it's a rule. The old stories say the mountain will show you 2 paths, one that belongs to you, one that doesn't. On the wrong one, your own voice comes back slightly late, like someone repeating you just behind your shoulder. Your shadow doesn't land where it should. Your breath feels borrowed. That's when those who were raised on the stories turn around. Treasure hunters call it nerves and keep going. A ranger once told a journalist the line that explains all the others. The word curse lets people blame magic when they ignored a boundary. He wasn't dismissing belief. He was translating it. The thunder being isn't a monster guarding gold. It's the law of place, weather, rock, pressure, time, wearing a name old enough to make you listen. So is there something in the Superstition Mountains protecting the lost gold? The answer, put the old way, is yes, the mountain protects itself, and what's in it is part of that self. Put the modern way, the combined physics of a hostile range magnified by human obsession. Either way, the result is the same. Those who ask permission may get a path. Those who don't get a lesson. You can stand at Weaver's Needle and feel this divide. Tourists snapping photos on one side, on the other. A hush that doesn't belong to cameras. 3 distant knocks in the stone. Wind that starts from a place with no horizon. A line you cannot see but still understand. And if belief can stop a man at the threshold, the land itself can finish the job. Because just beyond the stories and the warnings lies a landscape designed to kill. By heat, by height, by silence. And it doesn't need a curse to do it. The terrain that kills, nature's deadly trap. Ongoing. The Superstition Mountains don't need curses to kill you. They do it naturally, effortlessly, stretching across nearly 160,000 acres of desert wilderness. This landscape has earned a reputation among rescuers as one of the most deceptive in the American Southwest. From above, it looks open, a vast, sunlit maze of ridges and washes. But once you're inside, the terrain folds in on itself, twisting every direction into the same illusion. One more ridge, one more canyon, one more hour until dark. By the time you realize you're lost, it's already too late. Search and rescue teams call this the trap, not because of superstition, but because of topography. The canyons are narrow, winding, and lined with volcanic basalt that blocks radio signals and GPS reception. Echoes bounce in strange patterns. Footsteps sound closer than they are. Voices stretch and scatter, making it impossible to tell where they come from. The ground shifts constantly under heat and erosion, turning reliable trails into dead ends overnight. Every year, dozens of rescues are launched here. Hikers vanish in 110-degree heat, even within sight of the highway. Helicopter crews have plucked survivors from ledges where the rock beneath them had begun to liquefy in the sun. Others weren't so lucky. In 2012, 3 young treasure hunters went missing east of Peralta Canyon. Their abandoned campsite was found neatly arranged, backpacks zipped, food untouched, a half-written note describing a narrow fissure that felt like breathing. When rescuers finally located their bodies a week later, they were less than 400 yards from the trail. None of them had water left, but their bottles were empty and clean as if rinsed. Investigators wrote it off as dehydration. Locals still call it the canyon that swallowed air. The pattern repeats. Bodies found close to safety, gear intact, faces turned toward the mountain, not collapsed in panic, positioned, almost placed. One search coordinator from the Pinal County Sheriff's Office once said, "Out here, people don't just die. They disappear first." The desert's physics can explain part of it. Temperatures in the canyons rise fast and fall faster, swings of 40 degrees in less than an hour. That rapid change creates mirages of movement, distant flashes of water that vanish as you approach, shapes in the haze that mimic people walking ahead. Follow them too long and you step off the path. The geology adds another layer. The superstitions are built from collapsed volcanic domes, hollow rock riddled with air pockets and unstable scree. Sections of ground can give way without warning. Rescue crews have documented fissures appearing overnight, some 20 feet deep, lined with glassy black stone that hums when you drop a pebble inside. No one knows how far they go. Even seasoned rangers describe the landscape as alive. They talk about static before lightning, pressure changes before sundown, and winds that seem to push you where you shouldn't go. One ranger in 2015 wrote that his compass needle began to tremble, then point due west, directly toward Weaver's Needle, even as his GPS showed north. He felt a drop in temperature like a door opening. Seconds later, everything went still. He quit 6 months later. Scientists have tried to study the anomalies. Magnetometers pick up spikes of geomagnetic activity across the region, likely caused by iron-rich basalt. Seismographs have recorded low-frequency vibrations that occur in repeating intervals, sometimes for hours, even when no seismic activity is detected nearby. The instruments call it noise. Locals call it breathing. Then there's the weather. The Superstition Mountains generate their own storms. During monsoon season, walls of lightning rise over the peaks with almost no warning. Flash floods tear through dry washes, moving fast enough to carry boulders the size of cars. In 2021, 2 hikers were found drowned in a gulch where there hadn't been rain for 3 days. The storm that killed them formed 12 miles away, unseen, unheard, and funneled through the canyon like a throat. And yet, year after year, people keep walking in, some looking for the lost Dutchman's mine, some just chasing the view. Every trailhead bears warning signs: extreme heat, no cell service. You are responsible for your own rescue. But printed in small type at the bottom of every placard is the line that rangers know by heart: the desert does not forgive mistakes. That's the truth behind the legend, the part tourists forget. This place doesn't need monsters or curses. The land itself is enough. Still, there's one thing that science hasn't explained: why so many people describe the same sensation before something goes wrong. Not dizziness, not fear, a pressure, low, heavy, and rhythmic, like the pulse of the mountains syncing with their own heartbeat. It starts as a vibration in the feet. Then the air goes silent, and in that silence every instinct screams the same thing: turn back. Most don't. And when the terrain itself begins to move against you, when even the ground seems to decide you've gone far enough, what else could possibly be waiting deeper inside? The unseen enemy, lights, shadows and echoes in the wilderness. 1930s to present. For more than a century, people wandering the Superstition Mountains have reported the same impossible thing: light where no light should be, no fires, no lanterns, no trails close enough to explain it. It began long before electricity reached this part of Arizona. Old prospectors in the 1930s called them the Watchers, pale flames that hovered above canyons, flickering just beyond reach. They'd appear suddenly after sunset, hover in the distance, and vanish without a sound. When night fell, the desert turned into a maze of mirages. But these weren't illusions of heat. Witnesses described them as cool, almost cold. The closer you got, the dimmer they became, until the world went black and silent. Not the quiet of night, but a vacuum where sound itself stopped moving. In 1978, park rangers responding to a missing hiker in the Boulder Canyon area saw lights moving along the ridge, small white orbs gliding in a line. Assuming it was the missing man, they hiked toward them, but when they reached the ridge, the lights were gone. Instead, they found something else: a half-buried lantern, glass intact, but burned black from the inside out. It hadn't been used in decades. Over the years, hundreds of reports have poured in: glowing spheres hovering over Weaver's Needle, silent flashes deep inside slot canyons, flickering halos seen only through camera lenses. Tourists describe them as drones. Rangers call them what they are: unclassified lights. In 2015, a rescue team testing thermal imaging equipment captured something even stranger. While scanning a narrow ravine, their camera picked up a heat signature shaped like a person, motionless, standing against a rock wall. The outline pulsed once, then faded. When the team reached the spot, the wall was solid stone. The thermal residue, when reviewed frame by frame, showed a pattern: 3 faint concentric rings radiating outward from the heat source, each spaced exactly 4 seconds apart, as if the temperature itself had a rhythm. Audio is worse. The superstitions distort sound in ways even experts can't explain. Voices carry where they shouldn't. Echoes repeat when no one speaks. In certain parts of the range, especially near Hieroglyphic Canyon, even professional sound engineers have recorded low-frequency interference resembling words. The phonetics shift with each recording, but the cadence stays identical: a whisper in 3 beats followed by silence. People claim it's the wind, or radio bleed, or psychological projection, but some who've heard it describe something else: not just sound, but intent, like being noticed. There's one account that no one likes to talk about. In 1993, a local guide named Evan Tate led a pair of amateur treasure hunters into a part of the superstitions known as the Gates. The men radioed their position at dusk, describing strange blue flashes in the canyon below. Their last transmission ended mid-sentence. When rescuers reached the area 2 days later, they found Tate's equipment, 2 packs, and a camera. The film inside was mostly overexposed, just static and streaks of light, but one frame near the end of the roll showed a dark canyon illuminated by several small orbs floating low to the ground. In the center of the photo, barely visible, was a shadow shaped like a human figure, but with no body casting it. The coroner listed Tate's cause of death as exposure. The 2 men with him were never found. Even NASA briefly took interest. In 1999, A small research team used magnetometers to measure ground energy near the Superstition ridges. Their readings spiked dramatically when the lights appeared, sudden bursts of electromagnetic activity strong enough to fry camera circuits. One researcher compared it to a directed pulse, as if the energy was responding to observation. Whatever the cause, ionized air, quartz compression, or something older, the result is the same. Visibility turns unreliable, direction loses meaning, and human senses start to fail. Pilots flying over the Superstitions report static disrupting their radios only within the mountain's airspace. Hikers describe following lights that lead them in circles, back to the exact spot where they started. Some believe these lights guard something beneath the desert, a magnetic shield protecting the fabled Lost Dutchman's mine. Others think they're nothing but natural plasma discharges, misunderstood by frightened witnesses. But one detail never changes: the silence that follows. Every witness, from miners in the 1880s to hikers in 2020, says the same thing. When the light goes out, the desert stops breathing. Even the wind halts. The lights don't chase people, they wait for them. And when they appear, they always hover low, eye level, almost curious, before sinking back into the ground one by one. 6 paths into the same conclusion. Gold or not, something here protects itself. And if a mountain can close a door on command, what does it do to the people who try to force it open? 6 stories, 6 reasons to question what waits behind stone. If you made it this far, thank you. Tell us what you believe the needle is hiding, and whether you'd walk to that door if it opened for you.